If you have one day time for final exam but you didn't touch this topic earlier, and damn sure one or two questions will come from this topic in end exam. If you think in the same way like me, then this is the perfect video for you. This video will explain the basic concept of UV visible spectroscopy in a simple way so that you can understand the concept easily. Please watch this video till the end, and if you have any doubts or questions, please ask in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe my channel. Okay, let's get started. UV visible spectroscopy is a type of absorption spectroscopy. Here, valency electrons present in molecule or atom absorb energy, thereby molecule or atom undergoes electronic transitions. This is the principle of UV visible spectroscopy, but how exactly absorption takes place in the sample solution? Let's see what happens when light interacts with matter. If you are passing 100% light through the sample solution, only 40% light will be transmitted. Remaining 60% of light will be absorbed by the sample solution. It is mainly due to the sample components present in the solvent. The absorption process will be explained by Beers-Lambert's law, that is A equals to log of 10 I naught by I. Here, absorbance is inversely proportional to transmittance. So if you are increasing the absorbance values, the transmitter values will be decreased. And the second point here I need to mention is absorbance value, which is depending upon the concentration. So that means if you are increasing the concentration of the sample solution, the absorbance values also will be increased. So these are the two important points that are mentioned by Beers-Lambert. So let's go a little deeper into this topic. So we have taken two different type of samples, that colored compounds and colorless compounds. Then what happens? So when we are passing the light energy. So let's say 40% of minimum energy is required for the colored compounds to be getting excited. The electrons which are present in the colored compound will be excited by taking this 40% energy, and 60% energy is required for colorless compounds. Now we are sending 20% of light energy through the sample solution, but this 20% is not sufficient for excitation of these two compounds. Now we are sending 40% of energy, but this 40% of energy is sufficient for the colored compounds to be excited. So electrons will be excited in color compounds by taking this 40% of energy, but colors compound will not be responded to this 40% energy. Why? Because it requires minimum of 60% of energy. Now we are sending 60% of energy. So here only colorless compounds will be excited with this energy. So finally we can say that so different compounds are taking the different energy levels from the light source. So then it will be excited. The same concept that I can explain by using wavelengths also. So if you're taking 420 nanometers, so that is a minimum required wavelength to be excited by these colored compounds. So here colorless compounds are having minimum of 280 nanometers. Now we are sending the range of 200 to 250 nanometers wavelength by the light source. But this light is not sufficient. This wavelength range is not sufficient for exciting of these two compounds. Now we are sending 250 to 300 nanometers. So with this range, so here the colorless compounds will be excited by this range. So 280 nanometers is the lambda max for these colorless compounds. In this third case, we are sending 400 to 450 nanometers wavelength range. With this wavelength range, so we can excite colored compounds. Why? Because it is having the lambda max of 420 nanometers. So that means so different compounds will be excited at a different lambda max value. So what is lambda max? So lambda max is the wavelength at which maximum absorption will be taking place. So here in this case, so 420 is the lambda max for these colored compounds, and 280 nanometers is the lambda max for colorless compounds. Here in UV visible spectroscopy, we are discussing about electronic transcriptions. So this is very much important. So here we can see in this picture, we can identify the electronic transitions of different compounds. Let's say, for example, we are taking three compounds, compound A, B, and C. And three different compounds are having three different electronic transitions. So if you're comparing each compound, so A compound is having less energy, so it requires less energy to be excited. So why? Because A is present in N level, so non-bonding level. So here at this level, so lone pair of electrons are present. There is no bonding, and at this pi bonding and sigma bonding, a paired and bonded electrons are present. Okay, so these are the three important levels, so which are present in the ground state. Okay, so we are having three different components, and these three different components will be taking the energy, so which is depending upon its electronic transitions. So A is taking less energy and C is taking more energy. Why? Because C is very stable form. It is present at the ground level. So at ground level, it is having less energy. So it requires more energy to be excited to the higher energy levels. So these are the higher energy levels. That is pi star bonding and sigma star bonding. So at this state, so there is empty. There are no any electrons are present at this level. And here important thing is, so energy is inversely proportional to lambda. So so if you are taking more energy, that means C is taking more energy, it requires less wavelength. And Na is taking less energy, it requires more wavelength. Okay, so this is the important relation between energy and wavelengths. Okay, so this is the concept of absorption is taken place by electronic transitions in the sample solution, and electrons which are present at ground level will be excited by taking the energy, and taking the energy is depending upon its lambda max of that particular compound. A distinct wavelength will be uh, used for exciting of particular wavelength particular compounds. So this is about the principle involved in UV visible spectroscopy. Let's go to the instrumentation part. Here we can see four important instrumental components. First one is light source, monochromators, sample cuvette, and detectors. So monochromators include diffraction gratings and apertures. So these two components are commonly called as monochromators. Let's go to light source. So here we have a deuterium light source, so which is also called as UV lamp. 200 to 400 nanometers will be produced by this lamp. And this deuterium lamp is most widely used one. Why? Because it is producing 3 to 5 times more intensity than other lamps. We have two other lamps, that hydrogen discharge lamp and xenon arc lamp. So all these lamps are operated with high pressure. High pressure will be maintained in these lamps. And we have another important lamp is called tungsten lamp. So this tungsten lamp is also called as visible lamp, which is producing 400 to 800 nanometers. And this tungsten lamp, which is having a vacuum inside, and tungsten filaments will be present. And this tungsten lamp will be producing the sufficient energy for exciting the electrons present in the sample solution. And this tungsten lamp is inexpensive component, so we can use it. So that's why this is most widely used one. And we have other important visible light source, that is called carbon arc lamp, so which is producing uh, high light intensity. But if that is not required, tungsten lamp is sufficient for us to absorbing to know the absorbance of the sample solution. Here we can see a small problem that is we need to consider when we are performing this experiment: the lamp life. So usually lamps are having 1,000 hours or 1,500 hours lamp life. So we need to check the lamp life before starting the experiment. So if you're not checking the lamp life, so we can get some problems, like sometimes we cannot get the peaks, or sometimes we can get low peak intensity, sometimes we can get noise peaks or irregular baselines. So these are the problems that we can get when we are operating with low efficient lamps. So that's why we need to check the lamp life. And the second component here is monochromators. So here we are using diffracting gratings along with aperture. Aperture is also called as exit slit. And these gratings will be useful for converting polychromatic light to monochromatic light. What is the use of conversion? What is the use of converting polychromatic to light to monochromatic light? If you are sending the polychromatic light directly from the source to the sample solution, so this light will be giving some other radiations like scattering radiation and reflecting radiation and transmitting radiation, but we required only transmitted radiation. So that's why, so we need to use the monochromatous. So in between light source and sample cuvettes. Here we have two types of gratings. So diffraction and transmission type of gratings will be used usually. And these gratings are very efficient components. So that's why these are highly expensive components, and it will be used in spectrophotometers. And the aperture is also called as exit slit. Here it will be useful for selecting the suitable wavelengths. And we have other component like prisms, so we can also use the prisms, so which will be useful for converting light to individual colors. Here dispersion will be taking place. Here we can see the prisms and gratings. The dispersion that we can see here in prism, so light will be dispersed. And we have two types of prisms: refraction type of prism and reflection type. And these prisms are inexpensive components, so it can be used in a normal traditional UV visible spectroscopy. So here one important point that we need to consider, that monochromators must be made up of quartz material when we are operating with UV radiation. Why? Because quartz material will not be taking any UV radiation. So if you are using glass material instead of quartz material, glass material will be absorbing the UV radiation. So this is the important point that we need to consider while we are performing this experiment. And the third important component is sample cuvette. So this is the sample cuvette that we are using in the laboratories. We have two types of sample cuvettes: rectangular type and cylindrical type. So here also the sample cuvette must be made with the quartz material when we are operating with UV radiation. And we have two types of sample cuvettes, like small volume sample cuvettes and large volume sample cuvettes. It is depending upon the volume that we are using in that sample cuvettes. Small volume sample cuvettes are having 0.5 ml volume, and large volumes are having 5 to 10 ml of volume. And here important thing is we need to consider the cleaning process of these cuvettes. So if you are without cleaning, if you are using these cuvettes, so there will be chance of having impurities, and we are not getting the accurate absorbance values. So that's why cleaning is important. We can clean these cuvettes by two methods. In one method, we are cleaning with water, and after that we have to soak these cuvettes in a proper solvents like diluted HNO3, that is diluted nitric acid and hydrogen peroxide, for about 30 minutes. After that, we have to take it out and dry it. So this is the one method. And the second method is direct method. That in that method we are directly cleaning with ethanol or acetone solution, and we have to dry it up. So cleaning is very much important for these cuvettes, and also drying also. And the fourth important component here is detector. So here we can use photometric detectors. So these photometric detectors will be useful for converting light energy to electrical signal. So we have three types of photometric detectors, like photovoltaic cells, phototubes, and photomultiplier tubes. But in which photomultiplier tubes are most commonly used one, and which is highly expensive components, and highly sensitive components also. So why? Because these photo multiplier tubes are having a diodes. So these are the diodes which will be useful for converting one photon to multiple photons. So that means the signal will be multiplied, so when we are using these diodes. So that's why these photo multiplier tubes are producing high sensitivity than other detectors. So these are the important instrumental components that we are using in UV visible spectroscopy. So after taking the signal, after detecting the signal by the detector, the signal will be recorded by the recorder finally. And the last part is called applications. So here we have 6 important applications that we can see in UV visible spectroscopy. The first one is called detection of impurities. So impurities will be detected by UV visible spectroscopy. Here we have taken paracetamol. So detection of impurities which are present in the paracetamol that we can see here. So for that, so we need to take a standard solution of paracetamol and a sample solution. So we need to compare these two graphs to each other, and we can see the additional peaks in the graph that is representing the impurities present in the sample solution. And the second important application here is the structure elucidation of organic compounds. So different compounds are having different structures, so different unsaturations. Here it is depending upon the unsaturation of the compounds. For example, so naphthalene is having unsaturation, but anthracene is having more unsaturation than naphthalene. Okay, so depending upon this unsaturation, here we can identify the peaks. And one more point here is some compounds are having heteroatoms, some are having absence of heteroatoms. So we can identify the compounds depending upon this unsaturation and heteroatoms present in the organic compounds. So this is about structural elucidation. And the third one is called qualitative analysis. So what is qualitative analysis? Qualitative analysis is a process by which we can identify the sample. Here we can identify different compounds by using its lambda max values. Here the lambda max value is the qualitative property we can identify by using these lambda max values. Here in this picture we can have so many colored compounds like beta carotene, chlorophyll A, B, etc. And these all colored compounds will be identified by using its wavelength values, its lambda max values between 400 to 700 nanometers, which is at visible range. And the fourth important application here is quantitative analysis. So yes, we can quantify the sample, we can calculate the concentration of the sample. So by using this quantitative analysis, so here we have taken different concentrations of samples like 5 micromolar, 10, 20, 15, 20, 25 micromolar. So when we are taking the graphs for all these concentrations, so we are getting the graph like this. So here this orange color, which is representing 25 micromolar, so which is having higher concentration, which produces higher peak area. And this purple color will be producing 5 micromolar concentration. So it is having low concentration. Okay. So that means we can identify, we can easily calculate or measure the concentration of the sample solution. So by using this quantitative analysis. And also this UV visible spectroscopy will be useful for studying kinetics of reaction. So we have first order reaction, second order reaction. So we have many types of reactions can be easily studied by this UV visible spectroscopy. Here we are passing UV visible radiation through the reaction cell. And here we can easily observe that absorbance changes. So when the kinetics of change of this reaction will be changed. Let's say, for example, first order reaction, it is producing one particular absorbance values, and second order kinetics, it is producing another distinct wavelength range. So it is depending upon the kinetics of that particular reaction. So we can easily study it by UV visible spectroscopy. And the last one is called molecular weight. So we can measure the molecular weight so by using UV visible spectroscopy. But here we need to prepare derivatives of these particular compounds. So then only we can measure or we can calculate the molecular weight of a particular sample. So these are all about UV visible spectroscopy. So thanks for watching this video, and ask if you have any doubts or questions in the comment section below. And please subscribe my channel for more informative videos like this. Thank you so much. Have a great day.